So we have to make this fun, right? Okay. Doesn't sound like it's. Should we try this again? Thank you. Okay. I used to do this and other conferences back earlier in my career, and the whole goal was to make it feel like everyone who's outside the room is missing something. That's how much energy you have to kind of put in here. So when people we don't have any prizes to give away or anything else like that. Alcohol helps. There you go. I don't want people to fall asleep either, right? For that. My name is Mordy Golding. Thank you for taking the time to join. I run a company called Transformative, which is an AI advisory and foundry company. Very, very technical terms. We'll talk a lot about AI today. Just a show of hands, like how many of you are like already experimenting with AI? Great. Is there anybody that's like actually like building agents or using agents, AI agents at your organizations? One. Okay. Great. Maybe at the end we'll see if we'll get more hands up for that one. I was at LinkedIn for like 10 years and then left last year. AI is something I'm very passionate about AI. Some of you may know that LinkedIn is owned by a company called Microsoft, and Microsoft is the largest investor in OpenAI. So we were kind of taught from day one, like AI is the future. At least that was the hope, at least for it. So my hope is that today you get a little bit of sense of that. We've assembled an amazing panel here. So I'll start out just by asking everybody kind of give a short introduction and about what got you interested in AI for that. And we'll start with Aryeh.
Hey, thank you. My name is Aryeh Hoffman. I'm VP of Technology at Megadata. My career goes back about 10 years ago, automating reports and analytics for back offices for skilled nursing facilities. I joined Megadata back in 2019, I think it was, focusing on developing the product, bringing it from 2 to 3 customers to where we are today, over 2,000 skilled nursing facilities. And the primary focus is obviously data engineering and business development, business intelligence, but with a strong focus today in the last 2 years with AI. Obviously, we're going to pivot the product to be more of a AI-centric product, and that's the topic of conversation today, so excited to talk about that.
Awesome. Yuval? Aryeh has some fans here, apparently. So, Yuval?
Hi, my name is Yuval. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Celery. We're using AI to automate payroll review. Basically, our goal is to help operators to find costly mistakes and eventually reduce the payroll cost. Originally, what led me to deal with that, and specifically with AI, our original idea was to let's build a platform that helps to check payroll. Let's see that everything is accurate. That was roughly the same time that kind of AI broke out, and we understood very fast, okay, that's the tool that we've been waiting for. And in a way, for us, it was how we can create something that won't swamp our users with false alarms. That's, for us, was the big change of using AI and kind of what made it possible.
Great. Gavriel.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Gavriel Davis, originally from London, but recently moved to New York about 4 weeks ago. I started a business 3 years ago providing virtual employees to companies from the Philippines, Pakistan, doing very basic tasks in businesses, for example, data entry, customer service, bookkeeping, etc. About a year ago, I came across a company providing AI solutions to businesses, and I was like to myself, this is exactly what we do, but in AI, in a lot more effective way, a lot more efficient. And I was like, we need to jump on the train as soon as we can. So I partnered with this company that do AI consultancy and development for businesses, and we moved all our clients that were using humans to AI. We started off doing very basic tasks, things like customer service, bookkeeping, data entry, and over the last, I'd say, 8 months, we've now started building very complex AI solutions in businesses. We basically like to call it AI superhumans, so that's what we do, and that's a little rundown from me.
Awesome. And Avi?
Hey everybody, Avi Singer, CEO of Showed Me. So we're actually in a really old school, boring business. We do compliance training, so if any of you have to watch OSHA videos or HIPAA videos or sit in an OSHA class, that's us. But we are a technology company. So over the last 3-4 years, we've been leveraging various AI software to pretty much do everything at our company at this point. So the courses and how we create them are leveraging AI tools, how we code our platform, how we provide account management, customer service. It's fully embedded in our company. But interesting enough, not so much on our product. Our product continues to be a very straightforward, watch a video, take a quiz, hopefully you get a certificate at the end. But everything behind that, we're certainly leveraging various AI tools for.
Awesome. So I find one of the challenges, like when we talk about AI, is people say, like, well, what can it actually do? Like you hear about it, like most of us probably have experimented with ChatGPT, and like, okay, it writes cute poems. Like, how does this actually like drive true business results? So I'd love to hear from like each of you, and Aryeh, we'll start with you. Like, can you give an example of like a real world implementation that you've done with AI to help an organization?
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of what Avi said. We're also a technology that's been around for 10 years, almost 10 years. And essentially, AI is not going to just go ahead and change the product overnight, but we've been leveraging AI internally as a company. Will make its way into the product as well. So I'll talk about like some of the ways we as a company use the AI, as well as product development and part of the product, as development inside the product as well. So, I think the most important area is we're in integrations. We have integrations with different vendors, for example, clinical integrations, and being able to extract the tremendous amount of unstructured data like text from progress notes or from other areas like assessments, to be able to analyze that was something that was extremely expensive and very hard to do prior to large language models being available. And today that's something that's much more, it's much more possible to do that in today's environment. It's much cheaper, it's much more affordable, and that's something that we're doing pretty heavily. With structured data, though, it's not with like tabular data and analytics, and which is our bread and butter. That's not something that the large language models help too much on, but hopefully there will be some products there that could help us. And then in terms of the development of the product itself, I mean, that's something that every one of our developers are using AI on an everyday basis, and that's significantly improved, and I could talk at a later point more of the details, but it significantly improved our productivity on a development. And recently, about a month ago, we actually sat down and we discussed that the future of development in Megadata is going to be senior developers overseeing AI building out product. And I can't say that we've seen the success just yet, but we're building it out as an internal admin portal, and that is something that I'm very optimistic that's actually going to work
So
out.
I shouldn't tell my kid to be a programmer, is what you're saying.
I mean, I'm not the first one to probably say that. I think the CEO of NVIDIA said that.
Yes. Awesome. Yuval, would love to hear a real-world example of how you've implemented AI at a client or internally.
Yeah, sure. For us, AI is in the core of what we're doing. So it feels to me like every example I can share can go to there. But I think eventually the way we look at it, the main goal is to see clear results. I think there's that feeling like AI is promising something, but I'm not sure, is it going to help? Is it going to be as useful? Does it worth the investment? I think it should be very clear. If you don't see it black over white, so it's not there. One of the examples that I have in mind, an operator that started using our platform, they have 18 facilities, around 2,300 employees. So roughly speaking, I would assume their annual payroll cost would be around $100 million, give or take. After they started using our platform to automate the review process, it took, after 3 payroll cycles, they suddenly saw a pattern that came back again and again and again of overtime that wasn't necessarily should have been there, I'll put it that way. Very easily, they started to saw how they can improve it. Long story short, they saw an annual saving of $40,000. That was their first win. As we speak now, actually, I just checked it. There are now on savings of almost $400,000 on annual cost of their payroll cost. And it all goes back to the use of that technology in a sense of, okay, let me see stuff that I can't see on regular tools. Actually, I remember the CFO of that company telling me, I didn't even see it coming. I didn't realize it's there. And he was saying, like, I thought it's just, that's a sunk cost. That's part of doing business. I have nothing to do about it. Suddenly I started to realize I can improve my results. I can be way more efficient. in general, I would say my message is it's not necessarily, it can be our product at Celery, it can be many other amazing tools. It's about just setting those goals and seeing those results. And I believe each company can find their own path and the best for them in order to leverage that to improve performances. At the end of the day, that's business.
True. Gavriel, what about you?
Personally, my favorite success story with a client was they do medical supply for businesses and for hospitals, operators, nursing homes, etc. They provide large amounts of equipment to hospitals and nursing homes, and we implemented two systems. First system was for inventory. The second one was for pricing. So I'll start with the pricing. They receive about 1,000 quotes a day from different companies asking for orders. Let's say, for example, 1,000 beds, 1,000 wheelchairs. Every time someone reaches out, it's a very, very manual, tedious process to give a quote. They have to go through 20 different data points to give a price. It's very, very manual. We built a system where we trained the AI on all the customer information, all the company information, all the different data points. Now, when someone reaches out over email and says, hey, we want 1,000 beds, what's your price? The AI will analyze the email, will go through all the different data points and give the best possible quote, taking in everything into account. Now, they've achieved three things here. The first thing they achieved was they increased revenue by their quotes are very, very accurate. It's taking everything into account. The second thing is they, I lost my train of thought for a second. The second thing was they increased revenue because they were allowed to take employees away. So they were able to have, they had 20 people giving the quotes. Now they only have 5. They just have it checking over. And the last thing is they give quotes before anyone else. So they're giving quotes rather than in 5 hours, in 5 minutes. The second thing was inventory management. So we built a system where we trained on all the historical data, on all the time of year when people bought, and this ensured that they were never overstocked or understocked. So they always had the right amount, and they're never wasting money buying things they didn't need. And this just increased the business in every single way, and it completely transformed it.
It's amazing. Very great story. Avi, anything on your side?
Yeah, so I'll give 2 examples. I think one of them is probably more of a one for Showed Me, then one of them I think probably everyone here could leverage. So the first one is we build courses. And raise your hand if you've taken an online training course in the last 6 months. So most training courses are, maybe it's a PowerPoint presentation. If you're lucky, maybe PowerPoint with a little bit of voiceover. We realized that there was much greater engagement if we actually had someone speaking. Like now, this is much greater if you'd be listening to this as a podcast with nobody sitting here, it wouldn't be nearly as engaging. Problem is it's costly. To get someone to actually be a voiceover actor plus do the actual acting is costly. But we discovered a company called Synthesia about 4 years ago. It's a brand new company. And they had these avatars that we could actually get to not only speak, but also inflect, show empathy, be appropriate, and we have lots of avatars that we use. So we create this incredibly engaging training leveraging this tool, this AI tool called Synthesia. That's our software, one of our software solutions. The one that I think would be a practical example is we're very, very comfortable using AI tools. So we use ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, maybe 1 or 2 others as well. We had our company offsite, leadership offsite. Everyone has those. We had about a week ago at TWA Hotel. At the end of the 2 days, we had lots of poster boards and all kinds of notes and things like that everywhere. And all I did was I went around with my phone and I took pictures of everything that was there. And then I went into Claude, because I use Claude mostly, and I said, here's a format that I want you to organize everything in. I want you to start helping me create my strategic plan for 2026. It created the most amazing plan, something that probably would have taken me 4 or 5 days in the past to sit down and summarize everything. Plus, I probably would have missed a lot of stuff, right? Because it's on marker. It captured it, it synthesized it, it spit it back out. I shared it with the team. It had 95% of the stuff there, and it took 5 minutes. So we as an organization, if you even try to do these things manual anymore, everyone in our company will laugh at you. Like everything that we do in terms of these kinds of activities are all done using various tools because they're going to be way more efficient than we can possibly be.
That's an awesome story. Yeah, I can just share also that we've been discussing various applications of AI, and most of us maybe sit down in front of ChatGPT and type stuff into a browser or a chat window. But the reality is that the true power of using AI and leveraging AI is the fancy word of the century is agentic AI, right? It's kind of doing things on behalf. So I'll give you just one example of or two examples of where we've used this before. One of them is like for a particular facility that gets a lot of their funding through the city. And they usually have like a lot of third-party organizations, like nonprofit organizations that get funding from the city, and they provide services for them. They're usually very behind in their bills. So the city, though, publishes all of the times that these contracts are fulfilled. So there's an agent that automatically goes ahead and basically watches the city's website to identify as soon as any of their customers or their clients get funding from the city, and immediately generates then invoices and emails to make sure that they get hit at the right time when they have money in their account to pay instantly. Like before, it'd be very, very difficult to do that. So an agent just does that automatically. So it's not that someone is using AI for that, to write a kind email to them, but it's automatically going after that aspect of it. There's another thing also, which again goes to a lot of what Aryeh was saying before, excuse me, in terms of like working with structured data. So in a situation where like maybe you have a lot of reimbursements coming from insurance agencies, insurance does not like to pay a lot of their bills, so they usually follow up with a lot of emails that is like, well, this is missing, or that part is missing, or this is not in compliance. Whereas now an agent could basically ingest all these emails from the insurance agency, automatically gather all the proper documentation that they need and send it back without a single human being involved, right? And that instantly increases the amount of collections that they can get and payments from insurance as well. So that's like, just, I want to like plant a seed in each of your heads that AI doesn't necessarily mean sitting in front of a chat window, but it's behind the scenes doing a lot of that extra work. That being said, one of the challenges that I think we faced with some of these is that there are people who normally do that work at their jobs every single day, and even though it's like tremendous, these are great success stories that we're talking about, but the challenges that you have is that there are people now who are like, well, that's going to get in the way of my job. Like, I do that. If we build this solution, what's that going to be? So I'd love to kind of just hear a little bit about like what are some of the challenges that we've kind of seen right now. Like, there are great potential solutions, but Avi, like, have you seen, like, especially in your case where you're dealing a lot in the HR space and compliance, like, are you seeing like any headwinds or like, you know, things that could potentially be blockers for people to adopt AI solutions?
You know, I don't think it's any different than any other innovation. I mean, hopefully somebody told farmers like 1,000 years ago that tractors were coming and they should learn how to drive tractors because they're not going to be cutting the wheat themselves anymore. So I think, you know, for us, it's just that. I mean, we've reached out to, you know, our team has already been, you know, coding using AI tools, but we've even reached out to our, you know, coding, our partners, some of the software companies that we use, and said that those are our expectations. Our expectations are that we're not going to be paying you anymore for, you know, your regular development times and costs and things like that. You need to learn AI development, and then we will, you know, plan to use you accordingly. So, yeah, I mean, sure, people are afraid for their jobs, but I think the more important thing is don't be afraid for your job. Understand what happens when a new solution comes in. So, you know, I always go back to the first one. You know, people used to schlep boxes and then they got wagons, right? So then they drove wagons. So, you know, again, you just have to be up to that next thing, and then your job is safe. That's it.
Awesome. Gavriel, what about you? Like, what have you seen that like is like the number one cause for like resistance or?
So I would say that operators and owners are always very for AI. Company owners always want to have the latest innovation, the latest tech. But yes, the issue with us is that it takes two to tango, and most of the time we're not going to be working alongside the CEO or the owner of the company. It's going to be, takes time and commitment from the employees. So if the company owner wants it to happen, but the employees are pushing back, it's a massive problem because it takes them to make it happen. So I would say that recently they've been more open, more accepting to adopting AI because it's the buzzword, everyone's talking about it, everyone knows they need to do it, but they are worried about their job. But listen, we're not here to take away their job, we're here to augment it, we're here to make their lives easier and to allow them to do more important work. So it's just about education, I would say, and to make them see that we're not here to take their job, we're here to make it easier.
I'm a big believer in education. Yeah, Yuval,
Exactly.
What about you? What do you what do you see as blockers?
I want to refer to what Gavriel just said. I think when it starts on leadership, it's like every other project. Yeah, everybody are into it, everybody want to, but eventually it's like, you know, whenever you make an investment, it's about ROI. So it's starting there. It's about setting the goals, the expectation, putting a timeline on that, and like every other project that I would do, every experiment, any new service, vendor, whatever I'm gonna do, as a business owner, I will ask myself, what do I get in return? How much time do I spend on that? So I think it's exactly the same. We tend to go to efficiency, and efficiency is quite vague. Time saving, how much did I earn from time saving? It's really hard to measure it. It's not always get to, I don't know, full-time employee or whatever. So it's about setting up those goals, how you measure it, and how much time it's gonna take. That's one side of it. The other side, and exactly as Gavriel said, those are not the people you are actually going to work with. So actually I have an interesting story that we started on working how to automate the timesheet review, which is always a big pain point because it's a very repetitive task. It's going every week. You have loads of like lines to go line by line, and the people who's doing it, usually the facility admins, that's basically they're last in priority in all the other tasks and the other things that are ongoing on their facility. So we understood, okay, if we're gonna just put something on their heads that's gonna take a lot of time, that they're not gonna be there. So what we did, we went to a research to understand what are their specific pain points and how we're going to build a tool that actually is going to empower them and make them feel more comfortable with that process. And actually they would feel, hey, that's actually helped me to do my work. And we designed the entire the entire process of timesheet review in order to empower the facility admins. So once we created that balance between the leadership and the ROI they're expecting to see, while we understood what are the needs or the pain points of the actual user who's going to use it, that was a win. Since we did that, I think that's one of our biggest success stories.
That's awesome. Aryeh, anything to add?
Yes, I think it's a few things for us, specifically with that example of where we're using it to automate the coding and having the development team actually leveraging the AI to help build out some of the features. So it really boils down to, first of all, the education of it. So yes, we've done a lot of on-site trainings. We talk about AI all the time. We try to send out the videos that I learn from or the content. But there's a certain aspect of it that, they're focused on their job. Let's take a senior developer. They're focused on their job. They're focused on producing what they have to produce. They don't necessarily see the value of spending that time and learning it and really understanding the value of that in the future, because it's not reality today per se. It's more of a future thinking concept, and not all developers think like that or operate like that. The other aspect to it, I think, is that it's a very, very much a hands-on approach. You can't go ahead and just type in a prompt into Claude Code or into ChatGPT and expect, amazing results. You'll get something very, looks really good right away, and I think it's, what to talk about. But ultimately, we're, a real SaaS platform. We can't just go ahead and, produce something like that. So there's a lot of, manipulation of the prompting and the instructions. There's a lot of sophisticated ways that we do that in order to get good results out of the large language model every time, and we'll change different models, and it's not a specific model that we use, but it's becoming a real part of our development lifecycle. Like I have in front of my computer, when I'm in Visual Studio, which is where we would code, I have on the left side Codex, on the right side Claude Code, and I'm not doing anything but giving instructions. And I'm not going to go pretend like every time it's producing the next Microsoft, but it's doing stuff that take a tremendous amount of time. The perfect example I think came up for me today was about design. Design's an integral part of product development, and the old way was you would have to go in, you would have to have a UI designer going ahead, making up a design that would go through the product roadmap and go back and forth and iterations and everything like that. Today, you give it access to your Figma files, to your library of components, and tell it to give you 3 different examples. And it's doing an amazing job with that. And that saves a tremendous amount of time.
That's awesome. Just reminds me that, does anybody here that doesn't have 2 screens? Minimum? That's like the new norm, at least for that. So let me throw we're talking a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement about the things that AI can do, and we're talking here with people who have been obviously living in this world for a while. But There was a viral study that came out a couple of weeks ago from MIT that 95% of all AI projects fail. Very good viral headline, at least for that. But clearly, none of them have been any things that we've been working on, so we're in the 5%. But seriously, though, from that perspective, like, if there are people out here, in the audience today, that are considering, okay, I want to get serious about AI, how can you avoid being that 95%? What are the things that we can kind of do? And Yuval, we'll start with you. What are there approaches to how to think about AI and really seriously adopting AI to avoid you going down a path that would not end up in the right way?
So I think actually it goes to in a way, the same point I talked about before. It's about the ability to measure it. Okay, if you don't put a very clear goal in front of you, so you're kind of gonna miss it, probably. Not 100%, but you're gonna miss it. One of the things that we saw, we had a customer that he actually came and say, I'm looking for time savings. And then we felt, okay, that's the trap, that's the area that it's really hard to measure. How are we going to deal with that? And it was quite a big operator. They had about 30 facilities, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, my goal is actually I want to see time savings. So we went into a short research, saw how the team is organized, how many people inside the team, who's doing what. Then we realized, okay, we have 4 people that all they're doing is payroll review, and they do it manually. Each one of them is in charge of 7 to 8 facilities. So we said, okay, our goal is to see that one person can deal with 12 facilities, with 13 facilities. We asked our customer, is that a good goal? Would that be a success for you? And he agreed. After 3 months, we achieved that goal. He was able to reduce that team from 4 people to 2 people, actually, assigning the other 2 employees to do other tasks. And eventually, that was for us an amazing win, because that was exactly in the trap of time saving, that vague area that is really hard to measure. But it was about setting clear goals. And it goes back to every project that you're doing. And that would be, again, my main message here about it can be in every product. It's about asking yourself, what am I looking to achieve here? How much time I'm expecting for it to take? And what would be a success? And if you keep monitoring that, maybe it's going to fail. But then you realize, okay, I failed. I did not achieve my criterias. Let's close this project and move to the next one.
Well, yeah, at LinkedIn, we always used to say, no matter what it is, if you set clear metrics, you're guaranteed to learn something, right? Otherwise, it's just well, we just spent 3 months and no one could say yes or no or anything else like that. Gavriel, you had shared with me before, how sometimes starting with something like a small project and getting other people to see success gets other people excited about it. Can you talk about that idea about starting small?
Yeah, I think a very important way to start is finding that one pain point that the company is really, really struggling with, that there's a very, very clear solution to this problem, and tackling that one area of the business and having a very clear result. Once you can deliver in that one area of the business, you'll get to understand what AI is capable of and what it can do, and you can see the results very clearly, day and night. So I would say to companies who are looking to implement AI, what is your biggest pain point? What is the solution? How can we do it? We have a very clear goal. And I think that way you're set up to not fail. So that's what I would say. Find that one biggest pain point, tackle that, identify that, and go ahead with that. Deliver there, and then go off to the next area of the business.
It's great advice. A lot of times, people naturally get very excited when they talk about AI, and it can do a lot of things.
I know a big problem with tech people and people in my industry, that everyone over-promises and under-delivers. And this is why, because people just like to jump into the water without actually thinking or doing the right due diligence or checking the right systems. So I think that's very important, that just starting off small, then going further.
Awesome. Aryeh, what does a company need to think about, in terms of being ready for AI? I think we were chatting, a lot of people are still using paper-based systems or individual spreadsheets or just tons of unstructured data. Where is, the first place to start with a lot of things, just to get people, understanding what's necessary or required to have AI?
So I guess it's more of practically day-to-day what I use. First of all, to answer your previous question, though, you said 95% of them fail. So if that's, that means 5% of them succeed. At the rate that we're able to build with AI, I'll build 20 products, and then one of them is guaranteed to succeed. But and it's a joke, but in reality, it's really true because you're really able to build MVP products. We're able to do that internally and bring something to the table in terms of being able to say, will this succeed, will this not succeed? And right now, I don't think we're being able to do that in 2-3 days, but I think that as we get more acclimated with the new systems and with AI in general, I think that we're getting closer and closer to being able to do that. Right now, I think it's like a little bit, like I would say it's maybe a 20-30% productivity boost, but I would love to see it be a 3-4x productivity boost. I think those would be numbers that are not out of this world. And on a day-to-day basis, the tools that I'm using, first off, I personally get like an email. I use I think it's called TLDR, which is just an email notification that sends out information about the trending technologies, which I used to go around all these different platforms. I don't think it was LinkedIn, sorry. It's Twitter and but it's very hard to aggregate all that and understand the trends. So that's what these email engines do for you. They'll go ahead and send me like 10 topics of the day, and I was able to go through them and see what's interesting and then do more research on that. And and on a practical level, using the tools is the best way to do it. I mean, obviously everybody here probably uses ChatGPT, Claude, and just following up on those tools. I would mention, like we talk about agents a lot, and it sounds like this foreign concept, but in reality, it's really baked into both products. Claude has, what they call the MCP servers, where you're able to attach different connections to like Outlook and whatever it is, so that it could agentically do things for you, whether or not it's reading, summarizing your email, helping you schedule things. Those are just basic examples. And then there's other tools like Make.com or Zapier, or I like personally N8N, which is more of like a workflow tool where obviously there's the components of large language models in there so that you can automate these workflows, but also use AI with that. And it's drag and drop, non-developer friendly, let's call it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of an app called Relay.app, which also builds those workflows that it integrates with your existing tools. But maybe that's a good segue for us to just kind of talk about like some of our favorite tools that we use. Maybe it'll inspire some people out here. Like personally, again, I use Relay to like build automations, or like I have a weekly newsletter that I write. Well, I don't write it. My agent writes it for me. But I basically give it a whole bunch of information. I'm using that as an example because if you're running a facility and you need to update a report once a week about what's happening at the facility, you could basically just have it automatically ingest various data inputs every week, summarize that information, and kind of write things automatically. The reason why it's an agent is because it kind of makes decisions on its own. So just as an example, in my case, I send it like anytime I find something interesting online, I try to keep up with what's going on in the world of AI. It's very difficult to do that. So I find like a post on LinkedIn, or somebody sends me a link to an article, somebody slacks me something, I just forward it to the agent, and then every week it basically looks at like what are the 3 most important things that I should know about. And I've taught it to kind of know what I care about, so it summarizes those things for me, just as an example. So Relay is one example of a tool that I use. I use Claude probably 1,000 times a day. It's like my favorite tool. I have like a board of directors of like people who I kind of like admire in the world of business, and I have that loaded up in like a project inside of Claude. So anytime I have a question about something like strategically about the business, it's already connected to all my emails, and it's already connected to my HubSpot, which has a connection to all of my contacts as well. So I could basically ask my board of directors to weigh in on what do you think I should do now? How should I respond? It already knows my relationship with that client. It knows where I'm at in any of my deals as well. So it helps me navigate at least that aspect of it. But Avi, like, what are tools that you use all the time?
I'm going to go with Claude also because of the connectors. So
Yeah.
you can connect your Google Drive, you can connect everything, and I just use it as an assistant. Literally the way that, 10 years ago or 15 years ago in sci-fi movies, they were like, hey, Mary, can you, order me lunch, right? So I do that all day. But the thing that I think we're trying to get everyone in our company to get comfortable with, and I've been comfortable with this for a while, but we're trying to get everyone to get comfortable with, is don't use it like search, right? So most people are still using ChatGPT and Claude like search, right? It's like, go find me. You got to prompt it properly, and you have to really be aggressive about it. So an example of that is, my son asked me this summer, he had a job, and he said, like, how much tax do you think I'm going to gonna have to pay, right? So maybe 2 years ago, we would have just Googled like, how much tax will a 19-year-old boy pay on, I don't know how much he made, $2,500, right? And it'll give you like 15
Which
sites.
camp is that?
Exactly.
I went to the wrong camps.
I think he was hoping for tips. So typically we would have done that. We would have just searched and would have come up with a bunch of sites and said, hey, you can review the IRS site or some tax firm or something like that. But now you can actually say, hey, acting as a tax professional, right? And you give it all the prompts. So this is how old he is, this is where he lives, he's my dependent, all those things. Go find the appropriate information on the IRS website, on the New York State website, and be exact. Go estimate exactly how much tax he's going to pay, and nailed it. So I think it's not about necessarily finding new tools, but it's really about developing the one that you like and just getting really comfortable with it. Claude also has memory now. If you pay for it, I think you have to pay up, worth paying up. It's worth it $20 a month to do it. But it has memory now. So you may have talked to something about like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, or shared data or uploaded a file or something like that, and you have a question 2, 3 weeks later, it can go back and reference it. So it's learning and getting smarter, and it's becoming a better assistant every single week. So I have it finding me doing travel agents for me right now. I have it doing all kinds of stuff. And I, pretty soon I'll be booking, my travel or doing all kinds of other things as well as we get comfortable with it.
Gavriel, what about you?
I use the Rundown AI to hear about the latest AI development. I get it every morning. I like to read that on the way to work. Personally, the system that I like to use most within the business is we have an AI system that is connected to all our financials, and I can just type in a natural language, hey, where are we spending most money this month? Or hey, where are we struggling this month? Or how can I cut costs this month in a certain area? It's connected to all our internal systems and has all the live data. So personally, for me, that's the most useful. I can see all my up-to-date live financial information just with a, hey, what's going on here? That, for me, is my favorite. The second thing is I would say, we don't use it for our business, but just for in general, I really like the AI phone agents. I think they are incredible at the moment. They are so realistic, especially when they're connected to the internal systems of companies. The way they can answer just like humans is very, very impressive.
Is there an example of like one company that you?
Sure, I can give a good example of a company in London who do food delivery on a very large scale, and they work with 100 restaurants, and all their customers don't use phones or social media, or they use phones but not smartphones. And so people call up by phone and say, hey, I want to order a pizza. So they have as soon as someone calls up, they know who they're speaking to, they have their address on file, they have their credit card information, they know all the different restaurants, they know what's the best thing to get, all the information it has. So you can order whatever you want just by calling up. And if you're a new customer, you can give your credit card information, you can verify yourself. No humans are in the loop here. It's all done by AI.
Okay, don't give my kids that number, please.
Yeah. Well, they'd
There'll
have,
be nonstop pizza deliveries to that
they'd have to
house.
verify your credit card number, so if they know
Awesome.
that, then yeah.
Yuval, are there tools that you use that?
Actually, I was about to talk about one of the tools I'm using, and then I realized the thing that really changed for me significantly, the way I use it, is actually how to use those search engines like ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. And the thing that really changed it all for me, it's the attitude. Once I was starting to criticize it and challenging it and kind of asking it, okay, for example, asking it to, I don't know, write a business plan. And then after I got a very nice result, I was asking, okay, take this business plan through a stress test. Be my biggest criticizer, give me a complete different approach to the same business plan, and present to me something completely different. Once I was starting to kind of challenge it all the time and asking him again and again and saying, no, that's not good enough, do better. Okay, I want you to take a completely different approach. Okay, I like this one, but I want you now to give me 3 different alternatives on the same approach. My results became way, way better. And for me, that was like the recent biggest game changer on top of any other additional tool in a way.
I love that. Like for me also, there's like a moment that kind of changes the way that you interact with AI. For me, it was actually using voice. So I'm not a great typer from the hunt and peck kind of person. So I use an app called Whisperflow, which is a game changer. That I can talk a lot faster than I can type, but I don't want the AI to talk back to me because I could read a lot faster than I can listen. So for my interaction, like my wife is always asking, who are you talking to all day? And I'm like, I'm talking to Claude, and she's obviously very jealous. But by me just like talking through things, the beauty about Whisperflow is that it edits you as you talk. So as I'm just like talking and I say, okay, there are 3 things I want to cover on this thing, and I go, okay, 1, 2, 3. It will turn it into like a numbered list automatically. It'll remove all the uhs and the ums and whatever. And if I'm doing a train of thought and I go, okay, no, let me start over again, it automatically will delete all that text. Like it'll clean up all the text for me. And it really, really is a game changer for me in terms of now, me just quickly jumping into a conversation with AI for that perspective. All right, I just want to close out. Any other thoughts that you have in terms of like tools that you like to use?
Yeah, well, there's one tool I forgot to mention, and I think it's a really promising concept. I definitely see a lot of people using it as well, and that's these generative AI front-end tools. So really full-fledged development tools where I have friends that I've seen developing product that are never wrote a line of code before, which people call vibe coding, and practically there's a lot to caution about it, but at the end of the day, there's some very interesting and compelling products that are being developed that way. And tools like Lovable, it's a pretty common tool. Even I'll use it just for design concepts, but people are using it to build full-fledged back-end, front-end, hostable applications. And then V0 by Vercel is another product that I'm very confident, very comfortable with.
Awesome. You have something you want to add, Albert? Okay. Any questions from the audience before I ask a couple of more questions? Question in the back, yep. It's a good question. You want to start, Gavriel, with that?
Sure. So a few months ago, we experienced this exact problem with a company, Hallucination. We were automating customer service, so through emails, through WhatsApp, through SMS, chatbot, everything was done with AI. The issue was we trained a model on all their information, and they had 4 different data points, data centers, and they had opposing information. We didn't know that because we're not experts in the company. So for example, let's say they have a product on one area for $10, another product for $12. Someone would ask, hey, how much is this product? The AI would know what to say, and everything would get messy. So the way we had to attack this was we had to build an auditing system, which they had to go through each area of the business and then clear the information. But the way I would approach this going forward, that everything for the first 3-4 months has to have a human in the loop for everything, just to, especially when you're dealing with sensitive information and customers and business. I would say before anything gets sent out to a customer, if it's sensitive information or important, a human just has to check it and approve it. That's what I advise businesses to do to avoid any problems.
It's a really good point, and Aryeh, I'd love to hear from you, because obviously in this industry, like HIPAA is something that like a lot of people run for AI, and they're very quick to like connect them to data sources without thinking about potential security breaches or other issues. Like, how should companies be like thinking about setting governance policies?
So it's a great question. It's definitely something that we struggle with every day. You can't just go ahead and put everything into a large language model. It simply doesn't work like that. But plus, obviously, you get a lot of the HIPAA issues along with that. So what we've done is internally. So first of all, what you can do is technically you can train these models locally hosted. It's very expensive to do that, and you really know what you're doing in order to do that. But there's the other approach. This is not from a HIPAA standpoint. This won't work. But we use internally ChatGPT Enterprise. We don't have other people set up ChatGPT. We have our own corporate ChatGPT, which has some sort of agreement in terms of using the data. Again, I can't speak to if it's actually they're not going to use the data or not, but at least they say they're not. So that's a very important thing to do. It's worth the extra $10 a month per user that's going to use it to make sure that they're leveraging it, the right way and securely. Especially because we talk about agentic AI with MCP. This stuff could be there's real security issues there. You're basically giving control to a computer to something that's based on probability predicting what it should be doing next. That's a little risky. So think to answer the question as well is like, we don't yet use it for anything that's mission critical that needs to be 100% correct. We stay away from that, but we're using it to really help develop things that we were never able to develop, or things that don't necessarily have to be 100% correct. They could be 95% correct, and they're displaying information that's very useful.
I've seen, I'm an advisor for a company called Meet Cynthia, and they basically build guardrails that it's like a plugin that you add into Claude or ChatGPT, and that basically, you can upload your company policies into it so that every interaction that a employee puts in has to fit within those guidelines. So that's just another way to kind of potentially think about, being careful. But I love Aryeh's idea, which is like, if it's mission critical, like that's a good time to sit down and like talk about what's the right way to approach for that. Because I'm just thinking, I'm looking at Yuval right now, and I'm thinking, like, there are all the horror stories about like, oh, somebody hooked up Claude to MCP, and now everyone has access to payroll data. And like, okay, that's not a good thing you want to have throwing around the whole company from that perspective. So I know we're running running long on time. Just to kind of wrap up, like, we'd just love to know, like, AI is obviously moving faster than the speed of light. It changes every day. I know this, like, just, I feel like I'm on top of it, but I'm not. So I'd just love to quickly know, like, how do you stay on top of things? Like, what is it? Are there sources or things that you kind of follow every day that people can kind of learn from as well? I know I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, so there are a few people that I follow at least on LinkedIn to kind of hear from that. But honestly, I also use YouTube a lot. If you do a lot of searches for AI, it kind of starts to filter, gets the idea that you're not interested in the other stuff. So that AI hopefully helps you kind of learn more about AI. But Aryeh, where do you go?
Thankfully, you brought up YouTube first. I was a little embarrassed about that, but yes, YouTube Shorts it gets my attention span. But thank God that's my algorithm as opposed to whatever else is out there. And then TLDR is a big one for me. But any one of these aggregated sites that aggregate and send you out an email, or send me an email to go further into those links.
Yuval, what about you?
Actually, I would go with you. It's about following a few LinkedIn content creators. There are a few lists of like top 10 AI influencer in LinkedIn, and I find it quite useful because that's in a way part of what I'm doing anyhow. So it's easy way for me to follow.
Nice, yeah. There's also like a newsletter that I look at sometimes called "There's an AI for That," which is an interesting aggregated. Gavriel, what about you?
That's an amazing site. I mentioned before I use the Rundown AI. I get latest every day. But in our company, we actually have someone dedicated that is always, that's their 80% of their job is to just keep up to date. And the truth is that with AI, it's moving so quickly that if you build a system today, in 2 weeks it could be old. So his job is to simply make sure that all the systems are up to date. And if there is a better system we can provide to a company, we do that. So we're always building and improving company systems. And that's his job. He's dedicated to ensuring we're always up to date.
That sounds like a very fun job. Yeah.
He likes it.
Avi, anything for you?
I want to try implement AI to that soon, but for now, I'm saying I'll keep the human in the loop.
Yeah, I have it a little bit easier. I have about 25, 30 developers, so I really let them filter everything through. It's the same thing 10 years ago with blockchain, right? They were just, every day they were investing. Like, oh, it's funny, just like in Slack, everyone was talking about, oh yeah, I just bought Bitcoin, I bought, Ethereum, like it was just all day, every day, and I was just like, I'll stay here and see like what actually floats up as I think interesting. Nothing interesting actually came of that. But it's the same thing with AI, right? So I'm not going to jump on every link that those guys post there, but when I see buzz around a certain thing that they posted and everyone's like, yeah, this seems legit, those are the ones that I'll typically take a look at. So it's nice that we have we have developers, I think, in 3 or 4 different countries. So we're definitely getting a mix of what's exciting in various places. And like anything else, like the real stuff, like you don't have to be first. You can, especially with this stuff, like you can wait until other people try it first, and if there's enough buzz about it, you'll hear about it.
Awesome. Just want to open up any other questions from the audience? Yes. You want to start, Avi?
Yeah, I mean, again, the way I think about it is, it's, lesser of two evils, right? So the reality is, facilities are short-staffed and are not able to pick up on everything that's going on. And the question is, can you have a system in place that might be better? And I think the answer is you can. Now, I'm not saying the one that everyone has is, but I'll give you an example that we saw years ago when AI first started getting really popular. And everyone knows urgent cares are becoming really popular, right? But the challenge is you don't have a radiologist in every urgent care. So the first thing they were doing was they're outsourcing it to radiologists in other countries. But then again, you have a radiologist who's looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of x-rays that are being shipped over through various tools, and they notice that accuracy goes like that. So the one thing with AI is it stays consistent, right? So they don't get tired, right? So and if you train it properly, and you're constantly training it, are you going to get better results from an AI diagnosis of an X-ray or an MRI versus an actual person? 1,000%. So again, you have to verify that the companies you're using are good companies that are heavily investing in their research, heavily investing in training their models. But I absolutely 100% believe that for a lot of those things, like remote patient monitoring, like some of the other things that are from a diagnostic standpoint, it's getting harder and harder to rely on the staff on the floors, just because, again, they're exhausted, at the end of a long shift, or maybe they're working in multiple facilities. It's a real challenge for them to really be, again, no fault of theirs, but just it's a challenge. And I think we have to start using these tools, but it's on all of us to make sure that whatever we're recommending or offering or providing or using really have been vetted properly.
Anybody else in the panel want to weigh in?
I think there's a reason why we hear recently more and more the phrase human in the loop. I don't remember, it was very common a few years ago.
Only in the military.
What?
Only in the military.
Maybe. But that's exactly, I think, addressing this question. If you do it fully automated, probably you're going to find some mistakes, but as it's been said here, AI has the ability to do a better job. So eventually someone needs to be there to get the final decision, to click on the button, deciding I'm going to make it happen, but you still need that kind of guardrail. For example, for us, I always say that I did not meet the CFO who's willing to sign off payroll without checking it. Like, it's not going to happen. Question is, can I remove a big portion of the manual work out of the process? Can I get better results? Can I get a higher level of accuracy? And in most cases, the answer for that would be yes. So I think at the end of the day, it's kind of a hybrid model, but you still need that to get that final approval. If you go in fully automated, then it's a bigger risk, obviously.
Great. I'll just add one other thing also from my perspective. I once read a great book called It's Your Ship by Mike Abrashoff. It's a leadership book. He was the commander of a missile command, like a missile ship or something like that. And it was like the worst ship in the entire U.S. Navy, and then he turned it around to be like the best ship in the Navy. So he talked about his leadership approach, at least for it. But there was one thing, and as you were talking, it just reminded me of it, that his approach was he drew like a line, a red line, and he said, there are certain things that I always need to be in charge of, or everything needs to run past me. And I think his rule at that time is anything that could possibly like kill somebody, or somebody can get hurt, or there was like one other thing, like those are the three things, is if it falls into that category, I need to be the one who's making decisions on it, or it needs to be brought to my attention. But if it's anything below that, anything whatsoever, somebody else has an idea to kind of do something different, cook different food for the ship, or clean it differently, or load the machinery differently, whatever it is, they had full authority to kind of do it on their own. And I think if you're running a facility, you need to have that understanding of like, there are certain things that a mistake is okay for, it's for us to learn from, and there are certain things that it's absolutely not acceptable whatsoever. And if you can be clear about putting on a piece of paper what those things are, then you could build an AI agent that says it's allowed to do these things, but if these things ever happen, or let's say in a transcript, in a clinical transcript, it's talking about a certain type of disease or a certain type of condition, and you're saying AI doesn't get that condition very right. So for these conditions, it should be directed to a human to look at right away. But anything else is totally fine to get automated, at least for that part. I still think you end up, learning, at least from that experience, that having more trust that you build in that system. But more so, and I've said this before, at least in the world of technology, like the AI today is like the worst it's ever going to be. It's only going to keep getting better in the future as we kind of go. So there's two ways to go approach this. You can either say, I'm going to sit around for my facility and I'm going to wait until that day in the future, whatever magical day that is, when AI will suddenly be, won't make mistakes or won't be perfect. Not to say that humans never make mistakes, right? But that's the solution that I'll do. Or you could say, we're going to continue to like experiment and learn and see what we can use it for. And maybe now it'll save us 50% of time using this task, whatever it is. And then as time goes on, you'll continue to move that up a little bit more. Oh, now we can trust it for this. Now we can trust it for that. That would be my approach to taking it, because otherwise you'll wake up one day and realize that you're way, way behind and there's no way to catch up for that. So I know we're at time. I really appreciate all your time for everything. Thank you so much for the panel, for this. If you have any questions that you want to ask any people here, please come up and ask us individually. But thank you so much for your time. Enjoy dinner if you're staying for dinner. Thank you so much for your time.